commercial sewing machine as opposed to a table saw. When you push something into a table saw, it pushes back against you, right?
Yep.
When you push something into a commercial sewing machine, it sucks you right in.
Keep your fingers out of the way.
Yeah.
Have you sewed your finger?
Not yet.
Okay. I have. Welcome to the second installment from the International Builders Show. This is the Fine Homebuilding Podcast. I'm Patrick McComb. I am joined by Rob Wadzak, Digital Brand Manager, Connor Crook, the founder and El Jefe of Diamondback Toolbelts, and Jim Edgeworth, who is the Director of Sales and Marketing for the Bilco Corporation.
Hey.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Sure. Appreciate it.
So what are you guys doing here at the show? Go ahead there, Jim, you'd start.
I'm currently amazed at the traffic.
Yeah? So you guys, a lot of people?
Yeah, we was lucky enough to make a decision to put our booth where it is. One-dimensional layouts are not
Right.
easy to see, but we're right at the Central Hall entrance, and it has been nonstop all day.
What do people ask you when they come to the Bilco booth?
Mostly, really, it's product knowledge. I've got a application. How do we do that? Who do you sell to? Where can I buy? Can I get it from a major retailer, for example, or do I have to buy from this person? Do you sell products that would, fit this application mostly? So
Yeah.
it's very good. Yeah.
And do you find that they know your brand, I assume, because you guys are the leader in this business?
To a certain extent. I mean, we have been around since 1926, as when Bilco was founded. So.
And we should tell people what you guys make. If you could you do that for me?
Sure. Yeah. At the Home Builder Show, where the product that founded the Bilco company was a steel basement door, which allows for access directly from the outside, maybe the yard, to the basement. And at some point, we graduated to window wells, egress window wells, and it's a code-driven product that really anybody with living space below grade
Needs a way
has
to get out
have
of.
some way out. It doesn't have to be a window well. There's plenty of other options, but we fulfill a kind of a niche market with a set of plastic products. So it's maintenance free. It's fairly aesthetically pleasing, and so those two products
it solves
are
the problem, right?
Yeah,
When you got to get out of your basement, that's the
Absolutely.
way to do it.
Yeah. So,
I had a little tour of your plant a few months
Yeah.
back, and that was pretty exciting. It way exceeded my expectations of how cool it was to see how awesome it was to see basement doors made.
yeah, it's interesting. Our manufacturing was it was a Connecticut operation for many years, and 10 years ago we built a plant in Zanesville, Ohio. We were in the midst of a lean journey, as they say, in Connecticut, and so we built this plant to be a lean manufacturer. And so for us, that means it's work in progress. We don't really have inventory on the floor. We build to order, and that means every day the orders come in, they go into a bank of daily manufacturing minutes, and in a day or two, once the order's placed, out it goes. Now,
Cool.
It might extend for large volumes, but by and large, it works, as you saw,
Yeah,
very well.
It was
It's
sweet, and there was very
clean
little waste.
and very safe.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of job one for our operations guys, is safety. So.
What are you doing here, Connor? Are you exhibiting?
We're not exhibiting. I'm here primarily for the Keep Craft Alive event tomorrow night.
Thank you for mentioning that.
I think we still got a couple of tickets left if people are interested after you explain what it is.
So,
Scratch that.
Oh, shoot.
So this will be on tomorrow.
Okay, well.
So
the Keep Craft Alive event, Diamondback, we started doing some Instagram meetups a couple year or two ago, and we did one at the RDJ show in Nashville last year.
you have to
and
tell us what that is.
That's the remodeling and deck, and I don't know what the J is.
Can you imagine?
Joists? I don't know.
Junction boxes?
The remodeling show.
What is it?
It's easier, yeah.
JLC.
JLC,
Yeah, it's a JLC related
Live, yeah.
event. It's the remodeling side of JLC. They had the convention was at Nashville last year, and we did an event there. Diamondback and Andy Moore and Johnny Hurahan are both brand ambassadors at Fine Homebuilding, helped publicize it for us, and Rob and Justin from Fine Homebuilding came, and we kind of had a conversation. Hey, this is a really cool idea. They then reached out to us. Another month or two later and said, hey, let's do something in IBS. So last year I flew down to Orlando for an event, and we had about somewhere around 225 people show up for.
It was the loudest place I have ever been, and that includes like rock concerts from my youth.
Yeah, I know, because I was the one with the little toy megaphone trying to announce winners of contests over the den, which was pretty impossible. I couldn't talk the next day.
It was quite a party.
It was a great time.
Yeah.
It was, you know, so many people talk about social media and whether or not it's a good thing, a bad thing, whatever. What is great about what the construction community is doing with Instagram is that event was, it was like a fraternity party, but we didn't go to school together. Everybody knew each other because they followed each other. They knew a lot about each other, but they never sat down and just hung out.
Yeah.
And so we had a great time at that event. And of course, with Fine Homebuilding's sponsorship and backing, we also turned it into a Keep Craft Alive event, which
is meant to foster getting young people and others into the trades.
Yeah, so it's taking this whole social media thing, making it real in the now of human interaction, and then putting it to a good cause, which you can't really do much better than that.
Yeah.
So now this will be the second IBS meetup we've done, and that's basically why I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And you've your company's donated a bunch of the bags that are the goodie bags for the attendees.
Right. We this is actually the first release of the larger size of what we call the DB sacks, the bags that are being used as the swag bags. And we've got a tool belt that we're going to auction off, and any other way we can support it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
So
go ahead.
So you build, I noticed on your website, you've got kits for like all different types of trades, customized. I mean, how much does the input from the community play into what you guys do?
That is the driving force of what we do. My Instagram feed is pretty much me every day doing a story. Stories on Instagram, they're like little 10-second spots, but if you can string them together. Anyway, I just start designing. We are an open lab. We design right there, live action. People send in comments. That's a great idea. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Are they generally helpful?
Yes. And it's products that you never would have thought would be a big product. So this spring we're rolling out a track saw bag for the tracks. Whoever thought? Somebody suggested it. I threw something together.
Well, they cost like $150, of course. You want to put it in a case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it was like, my Instagram account's blowing up all night. My wife's like, why's your phone keep vibrating? I'm like, because everybody wants a track saw bag. But it's a new product, you know, track saws. They've sort of gone a little bit down market from the original Festool to some of the other brands, and it's popular now. And
the track is fragile, right?
And it costs $100.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come in anything other than probably a cardboard box when you buy it, right?
It comes in a cardboard box.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're making a nice padded bag that will fit those or a 4-foot level, and then eventually we'll make a larger size for like the 75-inch tracks, as well as, you know, a door jam set of levels and that kind of thing.
Jim, what are you showing new at the show here?
Basement door-wise, we have we're rolling out 2 new colors of powder coat. In our plant that we talked about a few minutes ago, we factory powder coat finish our basement doors.
Oh, so what's the advantage over that versus the red primer that most people are familiar with on those products?
Right. Well, for the homeowner or the installer, there's no extra work. You know, a basement door is a wedge shape, right? So getting the paint in the nooks and crannies on the job site is
a pain. It's
not hard, but it is a pain, right?
It's a pain.
So for about the cost of that labor and the cost of the paint, you know, consumers can buy one of the 6 colors. So
what are the colors?
Well, black and hunter green at this point, and then a gray, a brick red, a gray and sandstone. Yeah.
If I were to give you the address of a duplex I own, would you ship one of the black ones there in the powder coat? That'd be awesome.
Not only that, wouldn't it be great if we shipped it there and then Fine Homebuilding filmed it and being installed, and then it goes out on your Instagram feed.
I think we've been had, Rob.
And we get our marketing guys to put it on, you know, Facebook and the things that we use.
I love it.
That's
we
how it
could
works
do that.
now.
We could absolutely do that. Yeah.
You know, we love to showcase good quality products and tools.
That's why these guys are on here.
But do you know how many times a day we get people? Because where we work in Newtown, Connecticut, employees know that sometimes we need a place to film or shoot a video, and they're like, I could really use a little deck on the back of my house.
Yeah, my kitchen is terrible.
Hey,
don't you guys want to do a remodel on the kitchen?
They're hard to come by a lot of times. In the proximity in Connecticut, our advertising and marketing comes out of Connecticut, and when we say that there's a job in New Jersey, then you have to find vendors to fulfill, and anything that opportunity comes up is great.
Yeah, honestly, it's helpful to people who are going to, install a door to see someone who knows what they're doing do it.
Now, one interesting thing that we're showing for anybody that owns a basement door, which is a very exciting thing to have on your home, we have a weather stripping kit. All right, so our customers have been asking it. Well, we started in 26, so probably in 1927, they asked, is there a way we can block out some of the light and the bugs and all that kind of thing? So we're going to be, we're introducing it here. We're going to be releasing it next month, and believe it or not, it'll probably be a big hit.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be a passive house must-have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, you figure it's like there's so many things like that are outside of the realm of what people normally think about. Like windows and doors, it's obvious you're going to put flashing at the top of them, but like one of your Bilco doors, it's like. Sometimes things like that feel like they're neither an accessory, or they're not addressed in the same way.
And they're not inside. Yeah. It's like an outside.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. There's a door at the bottom of the areaway, we call it, and this is just to really keep the areaway free of debris.
Bugs.
And you get calls for snakes and bugs, and it's like, how do you control that stuff? So we're going to provide a weather stripping kit and an additional charge, of course, but.
That's cool.
It's an option, yeah. So we're excited about that.
So have you guys both had a chance to walk around the floor at all since you've been here, or have you been pretty busy at the booth?
I think this is my 22nd year, and I almost never walk the show.
You don't get a chance to, or you just don't want to?
Oh, I could choose to walk, but honestly, for the effort it takes to come and provide a display, and we invite customers in, and ultimately, if I leave someone that I would have liked to have met person to follow up with later, I just don't leave. I mean, other than biology breaks and a cup of coffee here and there, but
coffee out.
I just don't want to. I don't want to miss it. So yeah.
What about you, Connor? Did you see anything cool?
I just showed up and came straight here from the airport. Tomorrow, I plan to spend the whole day wandering about.
What will you look for?
That's a very good question. I've never been to this show, so I'm really interested to see what's here. I've been to JLC and the deck show a few times.
This is on a scale that is a factor.
It defies reason how big this place is. Yeah.
Can I give you a hint? I mean, I've walked it before. Do you own a home? Of course you do. Be careful with your wallet, because you'll see things that. And don't tell your wife, by the way, because there's some amazing things.
We're in Vegas. My wife doesn't even know where I am.
I saw a grill that I think I absolutely have to have today, and it's got to be worth $5 or $10 grand. But it was gorgeous. The stainless steel. It's like, it would cost more than like all the appliances I've ever bought in my entire life put together.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that stuff out here.
Yeah,
a lot.
And I wonder who has all this money, but somebody does.
Yep.
It's you, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's your viral videos. Yeah. You're holding back on me.
Oh, yeah. Anybody who listens to the podcast, if you might have heard that a couple of times we mentioned that I made this bicycle plow. And it's
you have to explain this to these guys.
Okay, so I've
seen one of these.
Did you see it on a viral video?
I think so,
In the past couple of days?
I did.
He built it.
I built that thing. I posted that video on Tuesday, Wednesday, and it probably had something like 8 million views. I have people from Estonia contacting me, asking me about it.
Because they need one there.
But basically, bicycles are my hobby, but more like in an artistic kind of mad scientist sort of way. And so I had this old snowplow from a tractor laying around, and I welded it to a hand truck, and I welded that to an old BMX bike frame and kind of cobbled some other parts together. And we just had some snow in Connecticut last week, and I was like, oh, it's a good chance for me to take, try it out. And so I had the gimbal I used to hold my iPhone to shoot videos here at the show. I wanted to test it out, so I had my 12-year-old daughter shoot a video of me plowing the driveway, and
She's going to be like directing feature films now.
Yeah.
You understand?
All it takes is an iPhone.
All it takes is an iPhone.
So maybe next year, maybe you'll see in like the tool section my snowplow for sale here at the show.
Nice.
What do you think you would have to sell that for?
Man, I'm gonna have to talk to some
have to
manufacturers
talk to marketing.
first. Yeah.
What do you think, Jim?
We're a steel plant. We can manufacture things out of metal, so keep
Okay.
us in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in Connecticut. So.
It's an interesting thing when I'm doing prototypes and whatever on my Instagram stuff. What's that thing cost? I have no idea. I'm designing it while I'm building it with input.
So tell me, what is the typical turnaround for a new product? Like, is it years? Is it months?
No, for us, we can do it very quickly. We've done some larger projects. We're releasing a vest this spring. We released sort of a wholesale remodel of the pouches for the main tool belt, and those took months to a year.
And you guys both make your stuff in this country, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
100%.
that's cool.
And that cuts down, a lot on that time turnaround. But
Does it? Or is it? So I've heard from manufacturers that it's challenging to find American manufacturers for stuff.
It's challenging to find the manufacturers, but once you have them and you have a good relationship with them, even though mine are in different states, a lot of things I sew enough that I can make a small prototype for a new hammer holder or something. Get the prototype together, I send it off to one of my manufacturers. I say, give me a call when you get this thing. And we get on like a video chat sometimes, and I say, okay, so you see how this is done, make this a little different. We walk through it. I got a prototype back in a week or two. If it's good, I got enough to start putting them on my website in another month.
That's amazing to me.
I've got a little bit of insight into
How did
this.
you learn how to sew?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
Just
Same thing.
all
This is how I've learned pretty much everything in my life.
That's cool.
So did you know how to sew when you came up with the idea for your business?
So the business has actually been around since 1992. It was started by a guy named Jim Skelton, who was the man's man of all man's men. He was a cross-country ski instructor, a carpenter, a windsurfer, mountain climber, all this stuff. He had a degenerative back disease. I know all this because I got in touch. I found his wife on Facebook and the internet a couple weeks ago. I was able to talk to her. She was telling me, yeah, he did all these things, but he had a degenerative back disease, and he got hurt on a job site. And so he wanted to design a belt that would be supportive, and he used his knowledge of materials and design. The original belt was much like the belt on a windsurfer. And the materials, he knew about Cordura and heavy gauge nylon, and created the whole system. And he basically made them in a garage for 10 or 12 years.
He sewed them all?
He and his wife and like their kids.
That's crazy. Nobody does that.
And so they were just selling them like one at a time. They had ads in Fine Homebuilding, a little tiny in the back.
Yeah.
And then they sold the company when he passed away, and it was owned by some folks in Alaska for about 10 years, and they kept doing it in the garage. And so then when I bought the company, we said, wait a minute. This is a fantastic product. We've got to get it to the world. So we found a manufacturer, started with one in Milwaukee, eventually added another in North Carolina, and just said, make them. Make them as, they're still handmade just the same way. You cannot make something stitched without it being handmade. It cloth moves. Unlike a piece of steel, you put it down, you laser cut it.
You'd be surprised how much handwork is in their products too, though. It's a cool thing.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
Open invitation.
Sweet. Yeah. Next time I'm in Detroit.
No. You got to come to
Zanesville, Ohio.
Zanesville, Ohio.
Yeah.
I might be in Ohio soon.
There you go.
But I bought the company, and part of it was the only time I'd ever tried to sew something. I used to build furniture for a hobby before I ran a company, Crazy Hours. I tried to use my grandmother's sewing machine to make some cushions. I ran out of cuss words. I had to start making new ones. It was the most frustrating experience in my life.
What was the problem? Was it the machine?
I didn't know how to sew, man. And so now I have a commercial sewing machine.
What is it?
It's an old brother machine. I had to get CJ Nielsen. He's a guy on Instagram. Y'all did an article about him in Fine Homebuilding.
He's an electrician.
Yeah. So it runs on 3-phase. My sewing machine.
Sweet.
Wow.
So I'm like,
how'd you get that to work in your house?
it's in my shop, which thankfully has 3-phase. This industrial place where I am. But I don't know anything about 3-phase. I'm okay with wiring like a house wire. I get on Instagram, I'm like, somebody help me. CJ's like, dude, send me some pictures of what you got.
That's
like
awesome.
sending pictures of the wires. He's like, put the red one over there and the blue one over there and get this mini circuit amp and da-da-da-da. It's up and going.
So it must have tons of power. That's the whole gist of the three-phase.
So basically what you need to know about a commercial sewing machine as opposed to a table saw. Mm-hmm. When you push something into a table saw, it pushes back against you, right?
Yep.
When you push something into a commercial sewing machine, it sucks you right in.
Keep your fingers out of the way.
Yeah.
Have you sewed your finger?
Not yet.
Okay. I have. Yep.
But you were talking about prototyping earlier. Right before I came back to Fine Homebuilding after a little hiatus, I was working for a company that does retail displays. I mean, they do a lot of the kind of stuff you'd see on the trade show floor here. And they produce a lot of stuff in the United States and some stuff overseas. And a lot of times the choice of where they're going to produce it has a lot to do with timing, because they'd have to, send plans overseas, and a lot of times they actually have to hire someone full-time over there just to communicate with the people, and then they build a prototype, and if you are on a tight deadline, then they have to airship it back over here for more than the thing cost to make.
That slow boat to China is a real thing.
Yeah.
We
The slow boat
that
from
with
China.
Our gasket kit recently. We wanted to expedite 200 pieces at $7,300 for an item that'll retail for $64.99 or something.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, and they weigh a pound a piece, so it does take a long time.
Why have you guys kept your manufacturing in this country? I mean, a lot of building product manufacturers make their stuff overseas. What has been the motivation to keep manufacturing in Zanesville?
Well, I mean, originally, being a family-owned company, the Lyons owned third generation. Bob Lyons Jr. was our president, and their succession plan was at a certain age, the shareholders would cash out, and that came in 2016 when the family sold the company to Amesbury Truth. And we'd always been, a U.S. manufacturer. I mean, one of the interesting things about Bilco is there are people that have worked lifetimes for Bilco. I mean, 40 and 50 years.
That's amazing.
And we still have some. Our advertising manager's been there almost 40. One of our chief engineers has been there more than 40 and started right out of school, And so I think it's just always been a U.S., it's always been an American-made type of proudness, if that's a word.
Yeah.
We source our residential products, or, all the raw materials are sourced here. It's always been U.S. manufacturing, and I just think it's a point of pride, really, for the company, that will continue. Yeah.
Is there something similar in Europe or South America? Like, do you find basement doors like Bilco doors elsewhere in the world?
Yeah, sometimes we run into it. Last year when I was here, I ended up communicating for some time from a guy in Sweden, I think. It's less common.
Mm-hmm.
The building practices are different. Basements, people don't build on land the way we do here. They don't buy 2 acres and build a McMansion kind of thing. You find it in Canada, although again, it's more urban building. There's less population than there is in the United States.
Sure.
As
there's
far
more
as
room.
Yeah,
It's hard to dig down in Canada.
Well, and there is, even in the U.S., there's that. At some point, a basement becomes a swimming pool in Florida. In Arizona, it's rock. And so, we trade in about 30 states or 31 states that we know of.
Most are in the Northeast and the Midwest?
Yeah, it really goes further than that. It comes out in the Midwest. I mean, big basement markets in places like Salt Lake City and Denver, Colorado, or the state of Colorado. But it's interesting, as people move about the country as they grow up, they've taken the idea of basements and basement living with them from the Northeast. Mm-hmm. As people retire or relocate, we find projects in Charlotte, North Carolina, for example, which when I started
that would be
been
unheard of.
Yeah, for sure. And so it changes a little bit every year. I think in the building economy, for a while when everybody was doing very well in the early 2000s, and that they were building large square footage. Today the square footage is down. They put a basement in, they can finish it. So the footprint changes a bit, but the livable space, is increased. And a lot of that, I think, is part of the U.S. codes that changed in 2000 for egress. Mm-hmm. Kids come home, they
right,
they,
or grandma moves in,
big
or
college debt. They need a place to live, and so
has that boosted the popularity of the escape wells?
Yeah, well, I think it's more so the idea of egress with the code. It has certainly, we've sold more. Steel sells more. There's more sliding glass doors. For us, it really depends on a mostly buried basement foundation, whereas a sloping lot's going to get something
It has a
that,
walkout.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's an aesthetic issue for people, but. So, and lifestyle changes and needing more space with what you have, and people are staying put, rather than rebuilding. And
yes.
So it's a good business to be in,
What was your motivation to manufacture in this country?
I don't think we ever even thought about doing anything else.
But it's way more common to have sewn goods
Sure.
made
Sure.
internationally.
So this is what I've learned. So I grew up in South Carolina where, there was a textile industry until I was a kid, and it's pretty much gone now for a generation or two. But reaching out to the factory that we are primarily working with in Milwaukee, and then, like I said, another in North Carolina, they have huge facilities, and they were able to do it. And starting out small, sort of like, well, can we afford there are a lot of cash flow. I'd actually looked into buying a different company years ago, and one of the problems that company had experienced was cash flow. They would buy large lots of materials from China, bring them over here. They had a huge dealer network. They would burn through everything. But then by the time they had the cash to turn around and buy
Make more stuff, you have to wait.
And their dealers were just getting aggravated with the situation of, wait a minute, you've got a great product, but we don't have it. So as we were doing a slow build, it made much more sense to keep it in the United States, where we could slowly build. We had a company that was they saw the product, they liked the idea, they sort of took a chance on us being able to pay the bills. And eventually, we've grown to, we source all of our materials in the United States. The mill that we work with to supply our cloth, they, again, a little down the road, took a big bet on us and let us buy tens of thousands of dollars worth of cloth and on 30-day terms. And that's part of, we've had those kinds of relationships. You would never want to walk away from those kinds of relationships, as well as what keeps the textile industry going in America is there's a thing called the Berry Amendment. There's a federal law that says everything the Department of Defense uses has to be made in the United States and sourced in the United States.
That's interesting.
So if you walk into any sewing facility in the United States, you see a lot of green and brown.
That's really interesting.
Because that's their bread and butter. And so for those types of companies, making a product like mine that is a heavy gauge nylon with the same kind of materials, it's an easy step for them. It's not
because they're making vests for soldiers and stuff.
Yeah, what they're making is very similar to what we're doing.
So I got a question. So, because I think most people are aware of how a lot of these industries, like the southern textile industry, have dwindled over time and in some places just disappeared. Mm-hmm. When you started getting into this business on the scale that you're in, did your business basically play a part in bringing back something that had been gone, or was it just sort of like the embers were still there, like the resources were still active?
So the resources were there. So we brought down the original machines that had been collected by Diamondback over 25 years were in Alaska. We had to have them shipped on a ship to Seattle, trucked across the country to be installed in Milwaukee. And they had to sort of learn to use those. They were very heavy-duty sewing machines that were a little different than what they were using. But at that time, we were sort of a piece of what they were doing. But now they've got a team of 15, 20 people just making our product. That team does nothing but make our product. And they have a team that makes our pouches. Then they have a different team that makes like the bags that we're giving away at the meetup. Mm-hmm. Then my people in North Carolina, I think they had 3 employees when they started working with us, and now they've got about 20. Not all of those are full-time on my products, but a lot. That company, that manufacturing company, and we've had a great relationship where they were 3 guys. I'm 1 guy. I'm now 3 guys, and they're 20 guys.
Yeah.
So the skills are a little bit there, but just being able to expand and we're creating jobs definitely in the industry.
That sounds great.
That is great. What about Bilco, Jim? What do you see the future for your company?
Boy, I'd like to say the future is bright. We all do, right? Yeah, I think it's interesting coming from a family-owned organization to being part of ultimately a holding company, and their mission is to grow through acquisition and the like. We were part of that. Ashland was part of that this year for Amesbury Truth. And so I think on a little bit smaller scale for Bilco, and especially on the residential side, we're looking to grow through acquisition. There's only so much organic growth you can generate in the building materials industry. There aren't a lot of new ideas and a lot of earth-changing products when it comes down to real manufacturing and steel and plastic and the like. So
do you see more plastics in the products? Has that a significant part of the business now, the molding?
I think plastic and even steel. I mean, if you look at roofing and decking and railing, it's all, people don't want maintenance.
No,
and so
we've seen that change in our lifetimes.
Metal roofing is a hot thing, and roofing that looks like slate, but it's some sort of plastic or man-made material. So all of those type of things. That's why Bilco manufactured the window wells out of plastic. We have a basement door.
That is the perfect material for that application, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't rot. It doesn't
rot.
Yeah.
Rust and rot. It just looks better. Keep in mind, the person that cares about that window well is the lady that owns the house, the basement.
And she's looking out the window.
She's looking out the window.
Yeah.
Maybe it's aesthetically pleasing, maybe it's not. Maybe there's flowers planted, whatever. But maintenance free is really,
what you want.
Really the key for most outdoor product lines, for sure.
Yeah, that maintenance free, just the idea that you have. I think we have maybe, it seems to me, less neighbors that do their work on their own houses or that are willing to scrape paint off of a house than when I was a kid. And do we see that as a danger to sort of some of the things that we're used to, the traditional details in houses, or do we just?
I think what it means is people don't have any clue about their houses anymore, right? When you used to learn from your dad, you oil the hinges on the entry door, or it's like you just have no idea.
Well, we powder coat up steel basement doors so people don't have to finish it.
Because they're probably not gonna.
We have a smallish network of independent installers, so that a guy has a old basement door that's 50 years old and rotted, he can choose somebody to come in and put it in. Lowe's and Home Depot sell our product. They have installed services. So I don't want to do that stuff. My weekends, right? My back, whatever.
Yeah. There's fun stuff to do. I'm not sure painting your basement door is among them.
No.
Not for $150. I'm out.
Right?
I'm totally out.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you gentlemen on the show today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
It is fun. This is fun. So I hope you get a chance to walk around the show floor and see some of the sights of Vegas. You guys have plans for doing anything fun?
Fine Homebuilding meetup, man. What else is there?
We got to have this guy on more often.
And I'm from the East Coast, so if I make it to 9:30 in Vegas,
that's my problem. Were you up at 3 a.m. this morning?
It was 3:45. The first plane went over, and I thought, I didn't realize the planes ran 24 hours here. Because some airports have a
cuts
time.
off.
Yeah, it cuts off. Not in Las Vegas.
Nothing cuts off here.
24/7, and this is a place we come several times a year, so it's not a big thrill, It's exhausting for the week, as you get on the plane on Friday or Saturday morning and your face is falling off. You're so tired, but it's good for business, so we come.
Yeah, and it's where everyone else is.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm in my mid-40s now, and when I was younger, if I'd come to something like this, I'd be like, okay, I just need to push through. I don't need to sleep, and I'll just crash for 2 days when I get home. I don't know if I can quite do that anymore, but
I can't.
The weird thing about Vegas is that because I think this they say New York is the city that never sleeps. I've been in New York in the middle of the night, and it's dead quiet. Dead quiet.
There's nobody on the street.
You can walk around this town, and other than where the sun is in the sky or whether it's there at all,
it doesn't look
it's hard to tell what time of day it is.
Yeah. You ever see a clock in Vegas?
Never.
Other than on your wrist or on your phone?
Never.
Yeah, not at all.
Well, guys, thanks again, and thank you all for listening, and happy building.